this is what everyone's going to be talking about this week in Pittsburgh is how soon should the Steelers start Kenny Pickett? Because I don't know if you heard this during Sunday's broadcast. I could hear in the third quarter at one point, the fans at Acrisure Stadium, home opener, chanting, Kenny, Kenny. Here's where I'd go to is, would he make a difference? But I want to go back to this, and this is going to be something we'll talk about all season long, is how soon should the Steelers start Kenny Pickett? Because however you want to grade Trubisky, I think through the first two games, it just hasn't been enough. I don't know what letter grade I would give him, but it hasn't been good enough. That's not all on him. I think that's on the line. I think that's on the skill position players. I think that's on the offensive coordinator. But how soon should the Steelers start Kenny Pickett? Because this is something we're going to be talking about here as the offense continues to struggle.
Good question, Mark. But just my personal opinion, and this is coming from me, they just looking at how the division is going to see what they're going to do with the quarterback and Kenny Pickett situation. So everybody lost last week or this week in the AFC North. And as long as they feel like they have an opportunity to win the AFC North or put themselves in position when it comes down to making the playoffs, that's when you'll see the decision being made. Do we keep Mr. Trubisky on the field or do we ride with the young one? And that's Kenny Pickett.
Like I always said, it's that matchup against the Saints following the bye week on November the 13th is where I have it circled on my calendar. Is not to say it's for sure going to happen there, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. And the rest of the division, I look at the first 6 games of the season where the Steelers are underdogs in 5 of their first 6 games of the regular season. We said this from the jump going into this year. If the Steelers go 500 or better in those first 6, because it's a brutal 6-game stretch, the back half of the schedule gets a lot easier. So, yeah, you probably let one get away against the Patriots. At the same time, I don't think many people expected the Steelers to win in week 1 against the Bengals. So that's kind of where I land with this. I'll say this again. I go back to whatever grade you would give Trubisky. It just hasn't been good enough. And I don't think that's all on Trubisky, though, either. It's the offense overall. And it goes back to it's as simple as this. And I feel like I'm a broken record, and I just want to say this one more time. We can move on. If your defense only lost 17 points in a football game in the NFL in 2022, you should win that game. And it's that simple. Like,
yeah, it is. It's simple to say, but it's hard to do, Mark. One thing we talked about with the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of lacked at a area was the offensive line, and that's beginning to become very clear. But we do like Mr. Trubisky and Kenny Pickett because they are mobile enough to help the offensive line and make plays with their legs. So, yeah, we shall see. I just think my personal opinion, how they would look at it if they wanted to play Kenny Pickett, was to see what the rest of the division looks like and see where they're at and see where they stand in the division. As far as like, okay, we should pull the trigger and play Kenny Pickett. But this might be the game to come back to haunt them. We'll talk about this in about 10 weeks. It's the AFC divisional game, and you said it best. They first 6 games are a tough sled, but I'm just excited, and I'm looking at just how the AFC North is looking. I still like Pittsburgh in a lot of situations, Yeah. So they always play the Baltimore Ravens good, even though I got Lamar Jackson winning the league's offensive MVP. Pittsburgh always find a way to hold him and keep him in check. Cincinnati last year, they became one of the comeback kids. That was a good story for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think now since Pittsburgh beat them already once, we'll see the second time. In Cleveland, Cleveland, we just got to see if Pittsburgh is able to stop the run. That's exactly what the Cleveland Browns are. They like to give it to Nick Chubbs and Kareem Hunt, so we shall see. But as far as liking Pittsburgh over a lot of the AFC North teams, I like Pittsburgh still.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the AFC North teams here in just a second. Even if you're the biggest Pickett fan in the world, though, on the shortened week, because you've got to play Thursday night in Cleveland, divisional game, even if you were Kenny Pickett's biggest fan, to say, oh, let's start him week 3, and this isn't going to happen. But you roll with Mitch for at least another game, and we always say evaluate by quarters, see where you're at after 4 games. But even if you're the biggest fan of Kenny Pickett, on a shortened week, it's still going to be Mitch Trubisky, the starter on Thursday night, as it should be. Now, one thing I would like to see the Steelers do offensively, we saw what George Pickens could do in the preseason. Let's get him involved a little bit. He only had one catch for 23 yards, 3 targets on Sunday against the Patriots. I'd like to see the Steelers incorporate him into the mix offensively because I think he could be a playmaker, a difference maker on that offensive side of the football.
It will. This week moving forward, I think Coach T and staff, I think they're going to come as a whole and be like, you know what, we got to give 14 the ball. We have to, because he's definitely probably our best athlete on the field when it comes down to the offensive side. So we just got to find ways. You know, I'm sure Coach T going to go to Coach Matt Canada and be like, look, I don't care which way, I don't care how, but let's find some more opportunities. Let's give some more targets to number 14.